We're going to move on to strikes in New York City, baby. Thousands of New York City nurses are entering a second day of strikes over pay and staffing. That's right. Let's take a look at what's going on.
Back with day 2 of the nurse strike in New York City, thousands of nurses walked out of 2 major hospitals saying low pay, long hours, and minimal staffing are causing many of them to feel burned out.
Many say patient care is also at risk because of the
I gotta warm
conditions
up
they're
my
forced
food
to
real
work
quick. I'll be
in.
back.
NBC News correspondent Von Hilliard joins us now from outside Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City with the very latest on all this. Von, good morning to you. So we're now in day 2 of the strike. Remind us, why are these two sides at an impasse, and what are you hearing from nurses right there on the front lines of this strike?
Yeah, good morning, guys. We're now at 24 hours in which this impasse is taking place. Negotiations continue not only here at this Upper East Side of Manhattan hospital, but also as well as a hospital in the Bronx. We're talking about nearly 7,000 nurses who are now on strike here.
I mean, we've talked about this a lot before on this broadcast. Like, what hospitals do in this situation to find scabs is hire traveling nurses that they'll pay $8,000, upwards of like $8,000, like literally just so much more than they normally would pay their own staff, that the math equation literally does not line up. Like, they're paying more for the scabs than they would if they just actually improved the conditions of the workers or hired more workers for the same, like for the regular price point. Intelligent. I love whenever these happen. I get recruiters offering me week-long contracts for $10K in the state where the strike happens. Travel nurses isn't always scabbing, but it's clear when it is. Do not take these jobs if you're a registered nurse. Yeah, exactly. It's bananas. Like, I mean, it does make sense when you think about it from the perspective of like, they would rather teach a lesson, and in the long run, they can bully the workforce into submission with traveling nurses that are scabbing so that they can turn back to business as usual. Okay. I work at a hospital, and that's the exact reason when we won our last time contract, scabs cost 4x our pay. Yeah. This is done in pretty much every industry. Obviously, it's not unique to just like nursing, but it's crazy. And it's being done in your faces. If you're a nurse and you see this and you get frustrated, understand that they're doing it deliberately, because like they're saying, like, I mean, they want to punish you. They don't want you to strike. They don't want you to have better conditions in your workplace. And ironically, of course, those conditions are conditions that actually make it worse for the patients overall too. When you don't have enough staff for your current patient number, you're not going to be able to provide adequate care for the number of patients. Travel nurses, of course, don't get the many benefits that you would have if you're a full-time staff, which is also, that's the reason why they use travel nurses. Because in a long enough timeline, that those benefits that you have to pay out are considered to be costly.
Right. The night before this strike went into effect, Joe, it was Governor Kathy Hochul who called on the two sides to meet in binding arbitration, essentially having these two sides work out a deal with an arbiter. But ultimately, it was the Nurses Association that declined that offer, and you heard from the hospitals that pushed back against the Nurses Association, saying that they've left not only a good deal, a good fair contract on the table, but now are also declining this binding arbitration that the governor put forward here. That is really leaving to questions as to what the Nurses Association wants here from the hospital. The Mount Sinai Hospital here yesterday put out a statement saying that the deal that the Nurses Association has in front of them is a good one, and that they are the ones that are leaving their patients out in the cold and in need. These are tough negotiations that have real life impacts, but the nurses insist that they're doing it to ensure that there's better long-term care for those very patients.
All right,
guys.
Von Hilliard here in New York.
I mean, this is absolutely slanted against the nurses. How do you find yourself looking at an entire sector that specifically works to keep people alive, okay, that do an insanely difficult job, that are simply demanding to hire more nurses that the hospitals should hire so that they can provide better care, and you still end up cutting this kind of coverage that like doesn't uniformly agree with the nurses, okay? It just, doesn't that trigger some sort of filter in your brain as like a human being when you see something like that, when you're like, well, this seems weird? Like, how are you gonna be like, oh, these lazy ass nurses, bro? Like,
in New York City! In New York City!
When we talk to nurses that work here for about 30, 40 years, they're saying there's never been a strike.
And take a stand.
here, they said they've always come close, but it never happens. So for it to happen at a New York hospital is pretty monumental.
The most important reason why we're here is because of chronic understaffing that has gone on for years, that has left nurses burnt out, patients in unsafe conditions.
Staffing is like the glaring issue here. We had as many as 800 vacancies a few months ago. It's down to 550, I understand.
The hospital could be hiring more people. That is what it is. They are saving a lot of money right now by having 500 open vacancies. This has a lot to do with the pandemic. I think it was bad before the pandemic, and it's gotten much worse.
We are essential. We are not disposable. We are essential.
It's an extremely difficult decision. We weren't, in that room until 1 o'clock in the morning doing.
Yeah, I think what we need to do is make sure that we have more cops, I think. No, I will not elaborate. No, I will not say anything further. I just think there's a real understaffing in the police force instead. And that's where government funds should go towards. And we should never, this is why we don't deserve, and hopefully we'll never get socialized medicine.
Negotiations in September for no reason. This is not a decision that we wanted to make, but we made it because we feel that this is the only thing that we can do at this point.
It's a big conflict, it really is, because you're leaving your patients and you develop relationships with them. You get to know them, you get to know their families.
This is another sector that is like a lot of women work. So I expect all of those like weird leftist accounts that are just simply reactionaries to be like, nursing isn't real labor, actually. You know, just like working at Starbucks or working in the service sector is not real labor. I can't wait for the idiots to be like, well, gay people and women and even, dare I say, trans people are nurses. So clearly not a real job. Anyway.
You have other coworkers that's not nurses that you're thinking about too, that's on the floor. But at the same time, if we're burning ourselves out, that's the thing. Like, something has to stop.
Kendall Brody says, as a critical care nurse, I can say I don't want more money. I want my patients to be safe. I want my patients to be able to receive adequate basic care. Well, Fossabot clapped our critical care nurse here in the chat. I can say I don't want more money. I want my patient to be safe. I want my patients to be able to receive adequate basic care. It's becoming so unsafe, so scary. It's not even a nursing shortage either, because when we are staffed, they say the census, and then they call off nurses. There's no shortage of nurses. There's a shortage of people that remember that these are human lives. We only care about the money. It's disgusting. Damn, Fossabot is just clapping Kendall Brody right now. I mean, staffing is like one of the most common things that nurses complain about. And partially because the sector is also like occupied by large swaths of a large percentage of the sector is occupied by women. So it's like teaching, nursing, and any kind of like caregiving position, like industries that have like a higher percentage of women than other industries literally routinely get axed. And the consideration for them is like social work is another one. They literally just are like, yeah, no, it's just women and immigrants. Like, who gives a and it's pretty much the same all around too, like across the board. Meanwhile, these are insanely difficult jobs, like unimaginably difficult jobs. Do you think it's a nice try FBI moment, or Chad is just straight brainwash calling unionization and strikes greedy? No, that's not nice try FBI. That's like the most common point of anti-union propaganda. They're just repeating what their dads have told them. It's one of the easiest ways to like immediately try to cause a rift within the working class when there's any sort of like labor action happening, is by saying, oh, the people that are stopping work are lazy and they're greedy, and that's why they're stopping, not because they have legitimate complaints. Another common one, as I talk about all the time, is the claim that that only the workers can stop the labor the labor haltage, okay? The labor stoppage. It's not. It's up to the management. It's up to the managerial staff to actually end the strike. They can do it. They can end the strike by meeting the demands of the workforce, but they don't want to do that, and the media rarely ever covers it that way. And that is what's up. That's why I always say the media is absolutely on the side of capital, okay? If you hear people talk about a strike, mention the demands of the workforce that are always reasonable, okay, that then exclusively surround the conversation about like what the workers are doing and why they won't start working again, understand that if they're placing the emphasis and the blame of the strike on the labor force, They are not on the side of the labor force. They are on the side of capital.
Vicious cycle.
We need to be able to work safely with our patients, and that is not something that Mount Sinai is willing to negotiate with us right now. What I would say is that it is reckless to understaff a hospital, leading to unsafe conditions for our patients. We don't want to have to walk out, but we're here because we have been sounding this alarm for years and nothing is being done.